I need some packing tape, and I've lost my packing tape. Anybody have packing tape?
Oh, I think I do.
Oh.
Okay, hold on.
Look at this. Packing tape, thank you. You lose the packing tape. If you're moving, you got to have a box, and you got to have packing tape. And so I think back at some moving times in my career. By the time I was a freshman in high school, I'd moved 7 times. I thought my parents were in the witness protection program. I also realized that you have to kind of pack light. And so a couple of things I'm going to share with you today is just some things I've learned from a packing perspective and kind of moving and what that means. But the other part I want to share with you, how many people have moved more than 10 times? 15 times. How about 17? See, 14 years ago this weekend was my 17th move. 17 moves. And I think about that because there's a lot of stories and lessons through that process, and it kind of gets me thinking about this box a little bit, because if you look here, college notes and toys, clothes, stuff's marked off. In fact, one of the moves from Kearney, Nebraska to Coronado, California, Allied's out there with this big orange bus or van, and they're loading stuff up, and it's the end of the day, and we have this stuff left on the kitchen table or on the counter. We're going, what are we going to do with it? And so we're packing it into a box. The phone was going to go in there. That's the last thing you unplug when we moved, and put it in there, and they carted away. 4 days later, we show up in Coronado, and a day later comes this big orange van, and now they're starting unloading, and the first thing you want to do is plug in your phone to see if you have phone service. Do you think I could find that box? And for the next 3 years, I looked for that box. I'm thinking, where is that box at? And every time I walked by this box that says college notes, all taped up, I said, well, college notes, nope, it's not there. It's not that box. And I kept on moving. And what I realized is you don't judge the book by its cover. So fast forward 3 years later, we're moving to Indianapolis, and I'm going, why are we carrying around these college notes? This is ridiculous. It's been 16 years from college. I don't need college notes. In fact, they're not even mine, they're my wife's. So I said, I take the executive directorate, I'm going to open them up. I open it up. Guess what's inside? My phone, the dish, the silverware, the stuff that the last stuff. And I looked at that and I said, I've been moving that box for 3 years thinking college notes were inside of it. Little did I know that that's where my cordless phone was. So part of the moving is learning about yourself. By the time we moved to Kansas City 14 years ago, my oldest daughter at the time, now going to be 25 next month, she was going to be starting her fifth school at age, or going into 6th grade. And so they got pretty good at getting to know a lot of people through that process. And so a couple years ago, Mark Mesh had the opportunity to have a master's meeting, and a gentleman came in and talked about the Kolbe Index. Some of those were in this meeting. If you've never done the Kolbe Index, it's the greatest thing to realize about yourself, how you're hardwired. And so my numbers, you get 4 numbers. I'm a 5'8". 8 is, I systematize everything. And then I'm a 2, stabilized, and then I'm a 5. I realized that in the moving, everything has a process when you move. Everything, when you pack things, there's a process. You put the heavy things at the bottom, and you put the light stuff at the top. And so as I went through my Kolbe Index, if you've never done that before, like I said, I'd encourage you to do that. A 5'8" to 5. It's really, how do you do things? How do you attack a project or work? And I realized that there's some things as I reflect back over my career. Oh, I know now I didn't like that person, or how we didn't get along because he introduced too much chaos. I don't like chaos. I'm a stabilizer. So if you've never had that opportunity, this is a great thing to do, and we can do a master meeting again on that. That's awesome. So last thing we're going to talk about is pack lightly. And in fact, I realized that it's not the things you have, it's the people and the relationships you make. over that time period. In fact, when we moved to Coronado, and I pulled in kind of late that night, and we had Nebraska tags or license plates on the car, the next morning I'm out outside the house, and the guy across the street walks over and he says, "Man," he says, "I'm glad you're here." And he says, "I don't even know you." He said, "My name is Fred." I said, "Fred," he says, "I'm a Nebraska fan. I graduated from Creighton University." I said, "Well, great, my wife graduated from Creighton University." He says, "I love Husker football." I says, "I do too." And for the next 3 years, we'd watch football games or travel to football games together. 14 years ago, when we moved to Kansas City, we had Indianapolis or Indiana tags on the car. We pulled up to the driveway, and the next morning, the couple across the table, or across the street, comes over, and they said, "Well, we're going to introduce ourselves, Ken and Kathy." And I said, "Great, nice to meet you." He said, "We don't like you." And that was the first word he said. I'm going, "Wait a minute." I said, "Well, I haven't even met you, and you don't even like me." He says, "We don't like you because you're from Indiana. The Colts, we don't like the Colts, and you must be a Colts fan." See, the year before, the Colts had come into Arrowhead and had beat them with Peyton Manning. And so with that, but we've since become good friends, but at the same time, it's that first impression. So with that, the moving, keeping it light, travel lightly, the Kobe Index, know a little bit about yourself, and don't judge the book by its cover. That's the 3 things I think about as far as moving day. So with that, next time I get ready to move, you will all be my helpers. Thank you.